Well, good evening, San Diego. I hope you know my name is Chris Ward. I have the honor of representing the 78th Assembly District, which includes part of the city of El Cajon and the majority of the city of San Diego. And I want to thank you for attending this webinar on how to serve on a state board or commission with Secretary of Appointments, Catherine Rivera Hernandez. And I want to thank you, Secretary of Rivera, for joining us this evening and providing this space for discussion with some of the leaders from my district. Of course, I hope today will be a resource to anyone who has ever considered getting more involved in state government. Our secretary has served as the Chief Cabinet Secretary for Governor Gray Davis, as well as Chief Deputy. Now, she has served as the governor liaison to various state agencies, departments, and boards, including the Health and Human Services Agency, the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, the Office of Emergency Services, and the Department of Food and Agriculture. In addition, she has her own experience serving on a board, having served in 3 administrations as a board member on the Agricultural Labor Relations Board prior to her current appointment. So today she is with us to talk about her work since she's been had the appointment as secretary and her important efforts to recruit about 4,000 governor appointed positions throughout the state. She will tell us about what she considers when she's looking for appointees, what the application and the interview process looks like, and how to know what board or commission may best suit you and any additional questions that you may have. I would say that the people who serve on our state boards and commissions, first, thank you. It is an incredible resource. It is time, it is commitment, it is talent, and it is a crucial part of our democracy. The board vacancies posted most recently in February had over 100 boards and commissions with open positions. So these are great for San Diegans to look at and decide whether or not they want to spend some of their time and expertise giving back to the state of California. Some of those boards and commissions could include the California Veterans Board, the Water Quality Control Board, or even the Alarm Company Operator Disciplinary Review Commission, all important technical boards. There really is a board for everyone. And Secretary Rivera and her team have worked hard to place people in the best position to help serve California. And through these roles, you have the opportunity to shape and weigh in on a number of issues and sectors across California. And I'll tell you, a lot of that information gets to the legislature and we can make better decisions because of that intensive service. Serving on a board or commission is a guaranteed way to have a seat at the table to help shape our state. Now, I hope during this evening's webinar, you're better able to assess if serving may be a good next step for you or how you can help recommend someone else to serve. No matter your background, experience, or focus or expertise, there is a board or commission for you. And I'm hoping that today might be your first step to eventually being a state appointee. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Secretary Rivera to get started on her presentation.
Thank you so much, Assembly Member. And you could be giving these speeches for me. Thank you very much. You sound, it is exciting. It is an exciting job. It's probably the best job that I've had out of all of them, if I'm being honest, and not knowing what I was actually getting into. And I'm going to thank whoever the staff person was that went through to identify all of those vacancies. Because what I will say is we are in the process of revamping the website because I have been on the other side of this process at least 4 times, maybe 5. I know the challenges that that website presents and hopefully have created a little bit more transparency on there. But definitely that was a task. So thank you for that, and highlighting the licensing boards, which are always a little more challenging for us, as well as the water boards. I also want to say is that your district has been a treasure trove for this administration. We have people serving from your district on aging, air resources, water, licensing, GovOps serving also in the governor's office, military, parole. I mean, I could go on and on. But I am talking about these are some of the most challenging and also some of the most rewarding and really priorities for my office. So the fact that you have so many individuals serving is actually a little bit unusual. You might have to challenge some of your other assembly members to step up their game. So you can imagine going into a second term, there are a lot of challenges that we are facing right now. One is we had COVID. And the shelf life for a lot of individuals on serving on this, is short. That's why we have terms for most of our boards. But COVID really exacerbated that. And then you add on the fact that we are now heading into a second term. So we are seeing some challenges. So it's also presents opportunities, which is why you giving me this opportunity is so important. And we've moved very large numbers within the administration. We meet with the governor every other week. We take in at least anywhere from 20 to 30 individuals, along with a very long agenda of what he wants to see coming forward in the next meeting. Some of you may know about the appointments process already or heard about it, but for those that don't, this whole opportunity is really to just demystify that process and hopefully prompt those that are here as well as those that they may know to consider applying. I have a group of 12, or actually I'm not above recruiting right now. We have a group of 12 individuals. We were actually looking for 2 more assistants to help out because of how large this administration is. I think there is a belief that the appointments process is an insider's game, that you have to know somebody in order to be appointed. And we wouldn't get very far, if I'm being honest, if that was in fact the case. We are just a very large employment agency. As you mentioned, with now almost 4,000 appointments, we have more than the federal government as well. So there are a lot of openings that are really taking on initiatives and that exercise in areas that are priorities for this administration. For that reason, we must rely on our online application system, which is located at the governor's website, the www.gov.ca.gov. I have already explained to the governor that I would say this because we are working on it right now, and that is that it's an old antiquated website. I don't think resources were put into it for a while, but it will get the job done, and it is what we have to work with right now. On that website, what I have added since I joined the board was a list of board and commission vacancies that is updated monthly, a list of deputies, which had never been on there before, as well as their portfolios. So if you see an area, if you're interested in education, if you're interested in a licensing board, housing, whatever it might be, you can directly email the deputy that is responsible for that board, because they really are the best person to tell you if there's an opportunity there, what we might be looking for with that, and what the timing might look like. And I will also say that if you don't see a vacancy listed, there will be at some point. So I still encourage people to reach out because you can find out when that next vacancy might be, because we obviously start recruiting before the vacancy is actually created. And if you know like that's the one for me, email the deputy and they will tell you when the appropriate time would be to put in your application for that. We also added a list of current opportunities, which is pretty much made up of paid jobs within the administration, because there is not a place on our website to go and find those paid jobs. So we put the ones that are priorities for us or where we might have trouble filling them on there, as well as boards and commissions that, again, might be more challenging. We also have the fair boards that also are a critical part of this administration as well. And that is also updated monthly. I would say the one question I get the most as the appointment secretary is, what is the governor looking for in appointees? And that is what I asked him when I interviewed with him for this job. And he said what he has repeated many times, and that is that he wants an administration that looks like the population that it serves. But when we talk about diversity now, it's not just gender and ethnicity. Of course, those are given and have been priorities for a long time. What we mostly have focused on in this administration is a diversity of experiences, geography, your upbringing. It's what has led you to want to serve, and how can that lived experience then be translated into a position. And that is why we have people who've been incarcerated serving on boards that regulate jails. We have had people who are undocumented come and serve in the administration. And it's someone like myself, who my parents were farm workers. My mother made my clothes that I went to in first grade while she was also trying to go to college and get an education and job herself. And it's that lived experience that I bring to this job, as well as the other team members, and honestly, people who serve throughout the administration. I will say the application itself is fairly detailed and it does ask a lot of sensitive questions. And my advice to people is to share your story. I have often had people say that they didn't really know if they should apply because there's some part of their either personal life or their professional life that they thought might preclude them from being considered. We know people have had varied experiences, successes, and failures. This governor very openly has shared that he himself has had successes and failures. And I've never met a governor more here for a comeback story than this one. And that includes bankruptcies. I mean, we look at people who have gone through a process and come out on the other side, and it's really about what did you do with that experience? How can you be helpful in that capacity? So if you have that comeback story, we're here to hear it. We're interested. So just don't take yourself out of the game. Applications are completely confidential, and only the governor's appointments units look at that application. So you don't have to worry about any of that kind of being out in the public. When we review applications, what I will say is people will often ask, I submitted it and I never was contacted back. What it is, so we know that you're listing areas that you are interested, but when we see a vacancy created, especially on a board or commission, we look at what gap has been created because these commissions and boards they're like puzzles. And many of them operate almost like businesses. So they might need somebody who knows how to manage a company or somebody who has HR experience or a lawyer very often is on these boards, financial people, communications, sometimes crisis communications people. So we kind of look at what is the makeup, and then we also look at it, as I mentioned, ethnicity, gender diversity, geographic diversity. It's one of the reasons why when I first came in and the governor said what he wanted to accomplish, I said, you do realize that is going to mean probably not looking where other administrations have previously looked. So for example, on our higher education boards, when we did those first appointments, we only pulled applications from the Central Valley and the Inland Empire, two areas that had been underrepresented. So what I will say is, that doesn't mean anything for your district, but it is about making sure that the entire state is represented as well as the experiences that people bring to that. So we often will put into the system what we are looking for. The downside is you may not get a call. The upside is you may get a call for something that you didn't even know that you were interested in. I often have people apologize for not picking up the phone and saying, "Oh, I didn't know. I thought it was a telemarketer." I and my team know we are absolutely telemarketers. We are calling to sell you something maybe you weren't even trying to buy. So we do that regularly. So you may, get a call, and it's okay to say no, is what I will say. Also, we want the right fit. So if that's not it, if we put the information in again and your name comes out, we're going to call you back. There are people that I have called 3-4 times until we found something that was the right fit for them. So put in what you're interested in, because we do obviously take that into account, but also, consider like that, put in your application. Who knows? We may be interested in you for something you hadn't actually thought of before. Now, if there is a position and that is the only thing that I want to do, I suggest Googling it. People often ask about various boards and commissions. And what I say is they are all different. There is no standardized, the time that is spent on it, whether it's days, hours, might meet monthly, they might meet quarterly. What you get from Googling it is you can go and see the agendas. You can also see the makeup of the board. And you can see, where are they meeting? Do they meet around the state? Do they meet only in Sacramento? How long are the meetings? Because you can see the minutes. It really gives you an insight into what serving on that board will actually look like. The other thing that it will tell you is how controversial that board might be. Not everybody wants to see their name in the newspaper. I know when I served during the Davis administration, I never even knew we had a horse racing board. The first day of this administration, that was the first thing the governor said to me was, you need to be focused on the horse racing board. So it all of a sudden was in the news all the time. So you really get an idea of is this something that I'm up for? And so in the process, as we go through, we pull out these names, we start calling people, assessing who's interested, who's not interested. Once we settle on a group of applications, there are a series of interviews that happen. It very often happens at a department level, then an agency level, and then the governor's office. We interview every single appointee for any position that we have that's an appointment. And it really is not, we're not looking to weed people out. It's not there to grill you, because very often, depending on what the area is, you could interview with 2, 3 people, you could be interviewing with 6 people. It can be very intimidating in that respect. Our whole goal is to get to know you. We aren't looking to exclude people. We're actually looking to bring them in and to really get that story. Most of our interviewers, we ask, okay, what is it that you would want the governor to know about your experience? Something that's not on your resume. And that is honestly, that is the most exciting part of what we do, as getting to know all of these individuals. At that point, we will settle. Sometimes we know exactly if it's one individual that we believe is the right person. Other times we might think, we're going to let the governor decide, and we might take in, we have charts. We'll take in 3 people, 4 people, whatever it might be, and present all of them to him so that he can make the decision if he wants to pick 1, 2. If we have multiple vacancies, we provide multiple people to him in order for him to make the decision. And when we go in, he already knows we've checked all of the boxes that need to be checked. There is a vetting process that occurs. We've gone through the interviews. So when we go into, that's the only time that he has an opportunity to get to know the people that are going to be serving in his administration. I will tell you, he has never asked for somebody who went to school. That is not even something that comes up for us. He says, okay, tell me about them, and what is it that you believe about their experience, whether it be professional, personal, or both, that is going to make them the right fit for this job. I have never seen a governor so engaged in the appointments process, especially at this point in the administration. There's not a single one that I don't discuss with him, from the podiatry board, the osteopathic board, the boards like you mentioned. Every single one of them are discussed with him. And again, we talk about why we chose that individual, where it might be geographic or some story that they have shared. At that point, he either approves or doesn't. And then we begin working with that candidate. And then the press release goes out. And for most people, that's all they know about the appointments process, is people go in and press release comes out. And after that, that's really when the real work begins. Because we will help support. We don't just send you off onto a board. We support you, often pairing you up with a board member that has been there for a while, having you talk with the ED, really supporting you, especially if it's somebody who might be new to serving on a board or commission. Also, you will see, and maybe in the letters SC next to some of these appointments, many of our boards require what is called Senate confirmation. And that sounds like a big deal. It is really the checks and balances of government, and those that go through the Senate confirmation process go in front of the Rules Committee of the Senate, where they essentially interview you and decide to approve your appointment, and then send you to the Senate floor, where then the entire Senate votes off the candidate. I, again, have been through that process several times, and we support the candidate through that entire process. We have a person dedicated to the Senate confirmation process. And again, it really is just another interview that you will be going through. And then at that point, we really hope that people are excited, to serve. We have so many opportunities. So if it is something that you are interested in, I really encourage you to reach out and learn more about it. I know the application takes some time, so we're totally fine if you want to have a conversation before you decide to submit an application. In any event, I hope this is somewhat helpful. I know that there are probably questions. So at this point, I'll just close and see if there are any questions. Or I could start telling stories about the governor.
If anybody has any questions, feel free to go ahead and ask them now. Okay, Betsy, you're on the mic.
Thank you so much. I just had a question related to how, if it's not a vacancy, but there's a particular area of interest or expertise that we think that we can bring in the application, should we just indicate that? And then part is the potential interview process, you would determine if there's not a vacancies there, that would be a better fit. I just wanted to make sure that I understood that appropriately.
Yeah, and it can happen both ways. One is most of our boards have terms attached to them. So at some point that there will be a vacancy. People can serve on some boards 2 terms, but that's usually the max. So we know we are going to have to start recruiting for those positions, especially if it's something you know that you're interested. In addition to that, we will also, as we start pulling for other boards, we can also consider that in parallel. It's not, I always talk, appointments is not linear in any respect, because of the needs that we have. So we work with individuals to determine whether something might be an opportunity down the road, and would also consider somebody if they end up being the ideal candidate for another position.
Oh,
I
I was gonna
believe.
say, it looks like we have a couple questions in
Okay.
the Q&A queue. I can
Oh,
read them.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
It's all
please
good.
do.
So the first one is there meeting flexibility to allow for folks with physical disabilities who may not be able to travel, but are dedicated or committing to serving on a board? So virtual meetings or any other options that may exist. What do those potentially look like?
So right now, there is a hybrid going on. Some are in person, some are still allowed by Zoom. There's a bill to permanently allow meetings to be held by Zoom. But of course, there is also reasonable accommodations that are provided. Not to get too technical, but people there can be space that is provided where the individual is. It just has to also be open to the public. So if there's a state building near that individual that they could get to, and then it would be open, then there are accommodations that are made in those circumstances. I also want to just also address that because I do get asked this, and that is around per diem. Most boards and commissions do pay a per diem. It is not going to come close to compensating for the time that most boards take. It ranges from about 50, 100, 400. And then also we reimburse for any travel that is needed, or if it's a multi-day meeting, accommodations that during that time as well.
Also, I think a good question to ask as well is, I know these are governor appointed positions, and especially with elections coming up, what happens to people in these roles when a governor's term ends?
That's a great question. So if it is a term appointment, you stay in that term until the term comes up. So the change in leadership does not affect the length that you would serve. In other positions where they might actually be paid to be in the administration, as some people from your district are, then it is at the discretion and at the pleasure of the governor.
I think you may have kind of touched on this, but if we could go back on, if someone is like looking at these positions that may be open and they're like, oh, I'd be great for maybe, I'm just thinking of like ones that I know we work with, like a San Diego River board, but also the Water Authority board, and maybe they want to put their application into multiple things that they think they would be qualified for. What would that look like? Are they able to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. We know people have varied interests. They're not just their jobs. If you have an interest in that area and you want to apply to multiple, if you're interested in water and you want to apply to multiple boards that deal with that, or if you have an interest in labor or whatever it might be, we don't say, well, you applied to multiple boards, so you must not be passionate about one. We fully understand that people come with varied interests. So I would put all the ones that you think that you would be interested in doing.
All right, with that, I want to thank everyone for their time. And we are going to be ending the webinar. This will be archived on Assemblymember Chris Ward's website tomorrow. So if you want to go back and view this again or as a resource, it will be available there.
Thank you very much.